Hey, it's Matt Pinfield. It's KLOS New and Approved, and I'm here with the amazing Krist Novoselic from Nirvana and now Third Secret. Krist,
Hi,
good
Matt.
to see you.
Thanks for having me.
So great to have you in the studio. Last time we did it on Zoom.
I've appeared.
I know. I'm so happy
I zoomed in.
Yeah, you zoomed in and you flew in, which I think
zoomed
is so
in
cool.
again.
Yeah.
In person. I flew my plane, came in from Astoria, Oregon via Sacramento, California. And we flew into Burbank.
Which is so great because we're in Burbank, so
We're
it
in
makes
Burbank.
total sense. So I was like, you got to come by and hang out with us.
We're in Burbank. This is where we are, the center of the world.
It's great. Now, so we can talk about, we're really excited. There's a new album out, the second Third Secret, which came out here just at the end of June.
There was the first Third Secret. So
Yeah.
now there's the second Third Secret. It's with Matt and Kim from Soundgarden on drums and guitar, respectively. Well, you tell the different. You know who plays in that band.
Yeah.
And Bubba Dupree, he's best known from the 80s punk band Void.
Yeah.
And Jillian and Jennifer from Giants in the Trees, which is the band I was in before Third Secret. So we came together. We were like a COVID lockdown band, and we cobbled this record together. It's kind of a long story on how we did that. But the second record, the second Third Secret, is out, and that's more of a band coming together. So we would just converge and play music, and it's really nice to hear Bubba and Kim play guitar. They're doing that guitar weaving thing, just two rock guitars. The Mr. Matt Cameron on drums, super solid. I'm playing bass. And then we have, we're kind of like ABBA. We have two women in front doing vocals.
Yes, Jillian and Jennifer. And, it's cool because, you're all kind of taking part in the songwriting. I mean, on Ditch, the first single from the record, you and Matt and Jillian have written that song.
Well,
right?
no, that was Matt and Jillian.
Oh, that was just Matt and Jillian?
Yeah, that was Matt and Jillian. Matt had these riffs. He's a songwriter and an artiste in his own right. He collaborated with like Taylor Hawkins. He's had solo records. Now he's on the road as we speak with Pearl Jam playing drums.
And he co-wrote and sings "Gift from Above," which is great.
He did that.
So
So he did Ditch. He brought these riffs in, and Jillian really has an ear for like vocal phrasing, and she just did some vocal phrasing, wrote the lyrics, and then we had a song. "Gift from Above" is a Matt Cameron number, the sweet song, the sweet love song, featuring the beautiful Taylor Momsen, the beautiful and talented Taylor Momsen. So it's that old school rock duet.
Yeah. And she's got the great relationship with everybody, which is because it's her favorite music, right, of all time. It's like Soundgarden, Nirvana. She's always loved the band. So
yeah. And
she did that, with Kim and Matt playing on her last record on that "Only Love Can Save Me Now."
Only Love Can Save Me Now. Yeah.
What a great song, right?
Yeah, it's really good. Big song, big riff. I love the Pretty Reckless.
Yeah.
They're really good. So I got into them. I think that song was my gateway into the Pretty Reckless. And then I played with Taylor at it was a great show, but the circumstances could have been better because it was a Taylor Hawkins tribute in Los Angeles Forum. And so we did a couple of Soundgarden songs with Taylor on vocals, who just was phenomenal.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was really good.
Yeah, she's really incredible.
Taylor Momsen.
But I think that's great. Now, but you did co-write, was it Her Disease? Is that one of those?
That was another Matt song. That's a Matt song.
Yeah.
Yeah, Matt does that. I think Jillian added some vocals and did a few little changes where she got a writing credit. I did a ton of writing on the first record.
Yeah.
And that's why it's kind of folky and strange. I play a lot of 6-string fingerstyle guitar. I'm really influenced by John Fahey, the 60s and 70s guitarist, and he influenced Jimmy Page, and so I played a lot of acoustic guitar. I did Butterfly Launches from Sparpole with Dr. Robert Michael Pyle, which is a spoken word record.
Yeah, that's a cool record, by the way.
Like that? Thank you.
I did. I was so glad you gave me a copy of it because it was just a great listen.
Yeah, and it's back up online. It fell off the line for a while, but we got it back online. And so that first record, I did a lot of writing on that, and the second record was it seems like Matt and Jillian dominate. Reckless Room, the first song, is a Kim Thayil number, which was not even a B-side. It was just a instrumental. Soundgarden recorded that. Some of those riffs on it was called Rough Riff Raff or something, and it was on a B, not even a B-side.
That box set with
it was
like
a
all
box
those
set,
tracks.
like Super Unknown or something like that.
Yeah.
And so Kim's like, "Hey, check out this riff," and so I like listened to it, and then I put it on this Pro Tools rig, and I started to arrange it. Like, no, we don't need that. That's not a very successful riff, and this is fabulous. Could only imagine what Chris Cornell, he just didn't want to sing it. And so I extracted this and that, and Jillian and I sat down and she started doing some vocals to it. And then we had a demo, and then we took it back to the band and we just hashed it out. You know, everybody works so fast. Like, you got to have a song down in a couple hours with like Matt and Kim. Well, Kim does not work fast. All right. But Matt does.
Yeah.
Kim works at like, he'll do some guitar overdubs, but he starts at like midnight.
Yeah.
And he's got to have his like blueberry flavored cider. Right?
Yeah.
And then he just kind of gets into his groove. But he produces. It's really good. He delivers. Yeah. But Matt's just like, all right, let's do it. Usually with Matt, it's like on the fourth take, we've got it.
Yeah.
So you got to hang on and go.
It is great. Yeah. You got to. So talk to me. You know, for historical reasons, and I've always wanted to know. Tell me about meeting the different members of Third Secret for the first time and your first impressions of Kim. Would Kim be the first guy you met, or would it be Bubba? Who was the first one?
Well, I met Kim. It was at a psychic TV show in Seattle at the Showbox, and it must have been 1989, 1990. It was 1989. There was a Jason Everman connection with Soundgarden and Nirvana. And then we didn't get into the show. Kurt Cobain and I were standing out in front of the Showbox. We didn't have the money, or we came late or something like that. And so we were hanging out in front. And here comes, like, I know that guy. He's the guitar player in Soundgarden, because I saw Soundgarden playing like 1985 or 1984 in Seattle with Chris Cornell on drums. And he's got like this flock of seagulls haircut. Remember those kind of like bangs things going? And then there's Kim, who's like clean shaven and has, I think, short hair, and he's playing this guitar with just like so much. He's got the chorus pedal like on 10. Anyway, and I thought they were great, you know. And I think good drummer's is a good singer. And but then Kim was mad at the sound man and was having a breakdown on stage. Anyway, so finally, there's that guy in Soundgarden, and so like, you know, when you get into a show, they give you a hand stamp.
Yeah.
Right. So they know you paid and you can come and go. Well, it said 666. So somehow Kim wound up with that 666 stamp on his forehead. So he's walking around and they're like, "Hey," and we're like, "Hi, I'm Chris. I'm Kurt." You know, we were like talking to him, and we're like, and so we mentioned that. He goes, "I don't believe in that stuff," or whatever. And I'm like, "But are you going to hell? You took the sign of the devil, right?"
Yeah.
And anyway, so that's why I met him there, and we played. Then we played with Soundgarden. No, before that, I think that's when I didn't think I met Soundgarden when we played with Nirvana. Played with Soundgarden in this park in Olympia, I think in 1988.
Yeah,
there's like photos to prove it, and we were like the first band on stage, and there Ben Shepherd has photos from that show.
Yeah.
Oh, because Ben Shepherd was in the audience watching, and it was
Hiro.
It was Hiro Yamamoto.
Yeah,
was the
before
the
Ben joined. And he was a fan, right?
Yeah. And then Ben went on tour with us in Nirvana, but he didn't play any music. And then one thing led to another. Then Ben's like, "Oh, he's the bass player in Soundgarden."
And you were like, "Wow, look!" And he's so great too.
Oh my God, yeah. And that's what I'm trying to do on that song "Reckless Room," is I'm trying to play bass like Ben on that song. So don't listen to that demo. So you don't compare it.
Yeah, well, I think it's amazing though. And so Matt Cameron, you met at that show in the park. That was the first time.
Maybe. I'm trying to remember the first time I met Matt. Just here and there in Seattle. Matt, Bubba, I met with Kim in 2001. 2000. It was like 2000, 2001, and we were jamming with Alfredo Hernandez, who's like in Caius, right?
Yeah.
He's from like Palm Springs.
Yeah, the whole
out
desert
there,
rock scene.
Desert rock scene. He's from that, and we were playing in Seattle, and we would just have these jams, and we would jam for about 3-4 hours, and then go out to the bar and close the bar, and so that's kind of what. And I had this really consumer like computer recording system that I just got in like 2001. And so, I did it on ADATs is what I did.
Yeah.
I had these ADATs, and I would record multi-tracks of us jamming, and we would just jam, and then I burned it on a CD, and then one thing led to another, and I joined Eyes Adrift, and the life changed, and it was like in 2020, I was like digging through, I was throwing things away. I was finding old VHS tapes, and on an old computer, I would put the tape in and see what was on there. And there's a lot of MTV that I had that I didn't want to keep because I don't own it or anything, but I would find some things, this and that.
Yeah.
But anyway, I found this CD that said Jams 2001, and so I put it in, and it was, these are the jams I did with Alfredo and Kim and Bubba, and like, so I put that, it was already digital, but anyway, I sent it to Kim and Bubba, and they're like, hey, let's go jam. And then one thing led to another, and it was like, oh yeah, we'll jam because Matt has some studio time booked, and Matt will be there. And then we started playing those riffs, and we put them I took them to Jillian, and then Jillian did that song "I Choose Me."
The
that was
first
like our
single.
first single,
did.
yeah. And it's just like, hey, this is like a great song. It's got a big chorus, and it's got the whole formula, and and then we started jamming. But then that pandemic kicked in, and that's kind of screwed things up, this and that. And then I met Jillian, and I think it was 2016. I had just graduated from online college, Washington State University, and then I didn't know what I was going to do.
You got your BS from there, right?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, in social sciences.
Yeah.
And then I was, because I've been active in Grays River Grange now for 20 years, and so the Skamakwe Grange, we were trying to get it going again, and so I met some of the people there, and like they were musicians. Like, well, let's have a jam like this Saturday. Hey, I'll bring my gear down, and then Jillian showed up, and so it was Raye and Eric and myself and Jillian. There was just only 4 people that showed up, and then we set up the gear, and we didn't like play covers or any kind of blues jams or nothing. I started busting out some original riffs, and we did that song Sasquatch. So we just we wrote a song right away, and then we just started writing songs, and we didn't look back. And I guess I'm in a band, and then I started to do butterfly launches from Sparpole again. So I had 2 bands, and so kind of like, I just got back into music. I had grand plans for like after like I graduated, maybe I'll go to graduate school and this or that, but it didn't. So I started just doing music again, and then I knew Jennifer from she would sing, and like she was in Skamakwe Swamp Opera, this like local band.
Yeah.
They have really talented. Kylene is a really talented opera singer, and they do this good, cool opera song, which is kind of folky. But anyway. And so that's how I met Jennifer, who's an attorney, who's a licensed, she passed the bar in Washington State. So I met, she's a notary.
Yeah.
She notarized some things for my parents.
That's cool. She can always notarize things for the band too, since she's
I think so. Yeah, she could notarize things, and then so it just kind of worked out that way, and it's just, and the band's a lot of fun. We don't have any shows planned, maybe after November, but we do videos. So we do these live videos to camera because nobody wants to do this like pantomime
lip sync video.
To some kind of concept. This is what we're going to say. We're going to say the world's a drag, and here's this imagery that's going to, I don't know, it just doesn't. And so we're musicians, and we love to play together, and I think people expect us to play together. So we do live to camera videos. We're going to do at least a couple of videos here in the beginning of August. Matt's back.
Yeah.
And those are going to be in the studio. And we just set up the multi-track and we play live to the studio. And it's kind of like, well, this is what we like to, it's an excuse to play together. So we're going to do some songs.
Yeah. That'll be great. We look forward to it. I mean, one of these days there'll be a show. It's funny you mentioned MTV, and one of the things that's out there, remember when you did like 5 or 6 songs in the MTV studio when Nevermind came out. There's actually, I'm standing over you guys as like a person.
I'm going to look. I had that black T-shirt with the white star.
Yeah, and I literally have like some hair still. I wasn't smart enough to start shaving.
Same here.
It was going. So at that point, I didn't get ready yet, for that look. But my friends have seen that. That was an incredible thing to be a part of.
See my fedora.
Yeah, we love your fedora. Your fedora looks great. And I want to ask you, did you get into the Psychic TV show, or did you guys?
I regret I didn't. I saw Psychic TV like in the early 2000s. And they were great. I love Psychic TV.
Yeah, Genesis P. Orge was great. And
yeah,
he passed away, but he had some
great.
Great songs. I was really into that. They were going to do a concept soundtrack thing with all about the 60s with that song Roman P. and like Godstar, which is about Brian Jones.
Godstar, yeah, Roman P. It's very challenging, and he was a pioneer of like electronica.
Yeah, with Throbbing Gristle.
House and Throbbing Gristle. Yeah, that's all really interesting music, and it's coming up on my AI, some like later Psychic TV. Then Flipper had, when I was the bass player in Flipper, and it was like 2008 or 2009, and we played this show in downtown Portland, which was kind of a disaster because it was a Flipper show. But just craziness going on. Then I find out after the show, Psychic TV played across the street, and a couple of them came over to the show to check out Flipper, and I'm like, I would have totally went to go see them, or if we weren't playing at the same time. I had no idea.
Yeah, and they were so great. How was that fun playing with the Flipper guys?
Oh man, it's amazing. Yeah, I started playing with them. I went down to the studio in Oakland, and I just got into it, and I'm like, so I'm playing all those classic Flipper songs, and I'm like, oh wait, this isn't a cover band. I'm in Flipper, and then we would go, and I would fly my plane. I would pick up Bruce in Garberville, California, which is like in Humboldt County, and I'd pick him up I was flying a Cessna 182 at the time, and I'd cruise down from Astoria down the coast, and I'd pick up Bruce, and we'd fly into Oakland, and then we'd go over to this crazy rehearsal space they were in.
Yeah.
And we had a keg of beer, and then we would just play for hours and hours and hours for a few days in a row, and we would just write material. We made that record Love Fight. Yeah. And that was recorded in Deep River at my house. I like that record. I think it was a good record. And then there's the live record where we do like the Flipper greatest hits of Flipper. Yeah. So it was fun.
With Sex Bomb and all the other
Sex Bomb, Ha Ha. We did Ha Ha Ha.
Yeah. I remember getting
you
that
shine.
Yes. The generic Flipper album, I remember,
That's the way of the world.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's an amazing song. That record was really like when I had my epiphany, like, because Buzz Osborne would give me these punk rock records, and I liked them. And then this record, Generic Flipper, I'd put it on. I go, is this live? It doesn't sound very produced. It just sounds, it was recorded for like maybe $100 or something like that. And I was listening to it, and I go, oh, that's pretty cool. Then I put it on again. It was interesting enough to where I put it on again, and I'm like, oh, wow, yeah, that's kind of cool. And then the third time, I was laying on a waterbed, and I put it on, and I was completely immersed in it. And I'm like, oh, my God, this is like the best music ever. And I was a different person from then on. I had my epiphany, like, oh, anything's possible. Or like that's the way of the world. There are eyes that cannot see and fingers that cannot touch. That's the way of the world. I'm like, oh yeah.
Yeah.
There's a whole different world out there. And I was like, that's when I was like independent. Like, oh, well, I wasn't really, I kind of checked out of society, but never, I participated. I had a job. I worked and did things. But I was never like into mainstream culture after that. They changed me. It was amazing, the power of music. And people tell me that about Nirvana, like, oh, Nirvana, your band really changed my life. Or I was at a time in my life where I needed to connect with something, and Nirvana was there. And I'm like, hey, I understand, because based on that Flipper thing. So
yeah, absolutely. You've changed. You've affected so many people's lives. Let's talk about. We talked during our last interview about Love Buzz and, how much we love Shocking Blue and you covering that. But what were like the first earliest records that you remember Krist, that you were listening to? They're in Aberdeen with you and Kurt. Things that you were exchanging as kids. What kind of stuff were you listening to? What were those?
I remember my dad had these like 4-track tapes before 8-track tape. There was 4-track, and I'd listen to like Chuck Berry and the Rolling Stones and Dick Dale, and then I would listen to 93 KHJ, and then that was like in the mid 70s.
Oh, that's right, because when you were down, obviously being born in Compton, but then being down and living in the
I lived here till 1979. I lived in California, and I was 14 years old.
So you'd hear the real Don Steele, and
I'd listen to KLOS,
yeah,
and KMET and that rock stuff. And there was this station out of Tijuana, Mexico, that had some monster transmitter. They had like 1 billion watts.
Yeah,
and they played a lot of music that I
was that the one Wolfman Jack was on, or it was the one before?
Something like that. They had this. They didn't have to do the FCC, so they had this.
Those guys were lucky. They had those signals, right, that would broadcast like half the country at night, because the AM amplitude modulation would bounce on a good weather day. You could hear it all the way from like to Canada.
Yeah, I used to do that. I used to go at night and just see what kind of strange AM things that I would.
Yeah.
I got to do that again because it's still out there. A lot of it's just like talk radio.
But it was fun when it was music radio. Like I used to do the same thing. Like I would even be driving in a car and I'd get like the station Whoa Whoa Radio from from Indiana. It would come in. It was like Fort Wayne, and it would be playing like these bands like Tintin and the Left Bank and all this cool stuff. You know, like not the Tintin from the 80s, but this other like kind of psychedelic band from like 1970. And they had a hit that like never made it to New York radio, so I never heard it before.
It's just something esoteric about that. And but we used to listen. It was all Buzz again from the Melvins, and then he was like the punk rock evangelist of Grays Harbor. And then he influenced a lot of people, Dale Crover, Kurt, myself. And so we got into punk rock, and then we recognized that the mainstream music just was not appealing at the time. I just couldn't get into that rock. And I was looking for something new, like in the early 80s. Like I would go to this place called Dill's Secondhand Store, and then like they had like a bear trap on the wall that was like this big, and chainsaw like as long as this room, and then he had like thousands and thousands and thousands of LPs, and I still have all the LPs I bought there. Like, hey, check this out, Jimi Hendrix Electric Ladyland, like an import on Polydor with like the naked women, was like $2.
That's how I used to buy those records, because they would return the imports and then they would resell them for like $2 or $3 for like a double album. And it was a store in New Jersey that did the same thing, and I would just buy everything.
And the great sounding pressing.
And,
And so, I was listening to, because I was, I don't know, maybe 16 years old, 17, 18. So there was a lot of music to discover. Like, whoa, just like really get into Black Sabbath. Wow. And this was like 1982. Well, I bought Born Again. But then I got into like, Sabotage, and I had the cassette. We'd listen to that cassette. We would just turn it, just flip it over and over and over and over again. We'd listen to it. And then there was this TV show because that's when cable started, cable TV. So we had cable TV, and then there was Bob Larson on Satanism and rock. And then he would do this, he did this show, and he'd say like, well, look at this Led Zeppelin song. This is all about the devil. He'd do these lyrics and things. Then this band, Black Sabbath, with the album Born Again. And it shows the album cover of that like devil baby, that red devil baby. And here's some, and then we'd like watch that show and go, cool. And we'd go down there and buy the record. Yeah. He had no idea.
You didn't realize it's always that way. It's like the PMRC, when they were trying to tell people to warn them about records, what they would actually do was sell more of them.
Oh, man.
Like the Mentors and bands like that didn't even exist.
The Mentors.
I mean, like before that, nobody heard of the
You can't get away
Mentors.
with that stuff anymore. Like Mentors, no, you can't.
You could never actually.
No, Mentors are over. Like, it was a different time. There were different sensibilities. Bob Larson never played the Mentors, but he played like Black Sabbath. He went through, Black Sabbath were an easy catalog, right?
Yeah.
Or easy target. And, Born Again. So we really got into that record. There's a YouTube video about the making of that record. It's like a documentary. It's a 2-part, and it's not like a slick documentary, but it's really interesting. And there's like people who don't like that record, and I think they're nuts.
Yeah.
That record's amazing. Yeah, it's Spinal Tap. It has like Stonehenge and all
Yeah.
that stuff. And I think that's Stonehenge because the little Stonehenge comes down.
Yeah.
And when in that documentary, they said, well, they got the dimensions wrong on Stonehenge for the Black Sabbath tour with Ian Gillian, right?
Yeah.
Gillan. And it's like, it was too big. So they played on this Stonehenge set that was just it was too big. Like, so anyway, the joke in Spinal Tap, it was like this tiny.
Yeah, when
and
it comes
Doors.
down, and it was basically because they heard the story about what really happened with Sabbath
Yeah.
at that period of time, which is pretty amazing when you think about it. Yeah.
It's pretty funny.
So, I wanted to ask you, we talk about the punk rock records that we love. You and I obviously were huge punk fans, and it was such an important part of what was happening at that period of time. In the late 70s, early 80s, when you started discovering stuff in mid 80s. But if you had to give somebody, if you had to say, these are 5 records that I absolutely love, that are so important to me, could you?
From the 80s or of all time?
Of all time. What would be?
Oh my God. Well, yeah, Generic Flipper, Beatles Magical Mystery Tour, Let It Bleed by the Rolling Stones.
Great one.
Physical Graffiti, Led Zeppelin. So I'm going, and then there's so many, Black Sabbath, Sabotage. There's 5 right there. Did I get my count right?
That's
But
great.
I could
Sabotage is one of the great underrated Sabbath albums.
Oh, I love it.
Because Symptom of the Universe is one of the greatest riffs of all time. It's so
My
good.
child of love's creation.
Yeah.
Once you step inside my dream.
Yeah.
Does he say 7-headed unicorn is waiting in the sky? On
That's
song?
what I think. That is what he said.
7-headed.
Yeah. It's amazing. I think Geezer Butler wrote most of those lyrics. You know what I mean?
Did he write that? Yeah.
Yeah.
7-headed unicorn is waiting. Like, whoa.
Hole in the sky, like megalomania.
Somebody's loaded or something's
Yeah.
going on. And what a vision, like some kind of vision. Like, is that biblical? I don't even think they had that in the Bible kind of stuff. Like, when the 7-headed unicorn appears, all shall be revealed.
Yeah, it's
we start
talking.
You and I start talking about like on those lines. It's just like whack,
Gonzo.
It's
so
Gonzo spirituality or
It
whatever, like metaphysics or
Absolutely.
whatever. We believe in the Church of Eternal Armageddon.
Yeah.
That according to the prophecy, and then insert whatever.
Yeah, insert whatever you want.
Yeah, it was after that. But you have to establish it by saying that stuff. Yeah. Right? That's what I'm all about.
Yeah, that was amazing. Well, I appreciate, Krist, it's so good to have you come in and to talk about things and tell stories. And we're excited. If you do decide to do a live show, we will certainly, I'll make my way up to Seattle or Portland, wherever you do it. But I know that everybody, in the meantime, can check out the videos that you guys have online, and they should definitely purchase if they want to get a hard copy of the second, third secret, and the first. They're out there right now. And is there anything else that you could tell us about? So the videos, do you know what songs the videos are coming for?
Oh, I think there's that song So Close, which is like the Blondie influenced disco song.
Yeah.
Jillian had that song, and it was like, I don't know, it just wasn't happening. And then so I went on YouTube and I downloaded this 20 minutes of disco drum beat.
Yeah.
And I started playing bass, and I came up with this bass line. And to that, like those notes, that structure she had, and I go, here it is. And then she just took to it right away. And so like we had this disco song. It's Blondie, man. Blondie, Blondie.
Yeah, it's great.
And we might do that. I think there's some other songs. I'm not sure what. Maybe be that a surprise. We're on YouTube. We have our YouTube channel. And be sure to hit subscribe and like for New and Improved, right?
Yeah.
We have our community, so if you're subscribed, or I guess you can go to our community tab. That's our only social media we do.
Yeah.
We're not on any mainstream social media because that is my preference.
Yeah.
That's what I don't want to do.
Yeah.
But since YouTube pays,
Yeah.
and they're following me all over, Google is following me all over everything. They know everything about me.
Yeah.
The midget amputee mud wrestling videos.
Yeah.
I watch those because I'm doing research. It's a fascinating intersection between like people with disabilities and entertainment.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm really like, that's why I don't have like this prurient interest about that. Like, I'm serious about that. So when that comes out, because they track you, right?
Yeah, everything.
And then they're infested with like the government, state,
Yeah.
Because according to the prophecy.
Yeah, we're going to
insert that here.
Insert
anyway, but if you could read between the lines, you can kind of get what I'm saying. But that's what it's all about, right?
It's great.
Yeah. So thanks for having me.
I love having you on, Krist. And, it's going to be a regular thing. So, whenever you feel like coming on and talking about music or anything else, you're always welcome to be here. One of your fans wrote in.
Thank you. And I'm going to take you up on that.
Yeah.
You've been warned.
Yeah, well, I like it. I like having you here because we always have a great conversation, right? We enjoy
we'll
it.
Catch up on things.
And I appreciate that you stream the show at home when you're up in Washington State.
We do that. We stream it show and new and approved. We Sunday nights we just chill on the couch and just kind of relax and just listen. We don't watch television, so there's something about like radio and listening to things that just captures the mind's eye. Just kind of old-fashioned.
Yeah, I love it actually.
Yeah,
I still love that. It's still so important to me. It's the most important thing. That's why I love what I do and doing it so much. The one question one of your fans had was favorite bass players who or guys that you like when you picked up the bass. Who were you thinking of? Who did you like? And it could be in.
It's all that Entwistle, Geezer Butler, Paul McCartney. Mike Mills from REM. If you listen to Document and like Life's Rich Pageant and Green, you can hear a lot of those bass riffs like on Nevermind, or just not that I've lifted them, but you can kind of hear what I was listening to at the time.
Yeah.
Like we were listening to a lot of pop music. That's just three or four of my favorite right there.
Yeah.
There's so many.
They're all great.
Geddy Lee's great, and I try to channel him. I was hanging with Geddy. And he connected me with this bicentennial Gibson Thunderbird bass, and something about those necks. And there's one song, it's "Climb Aboard" on our new Third Secret record, and I try to channel some Geddy on there.
That's great.
Yeah, I try to. It's something about that neck is so fluid. Maybe I can do some.
Yeah, and Geddy's great. Well, one last question I had for you, since I'm from the same town and areas as Smithereens. I love this story, and I'm friends with them, forever. Pat Denizio sadly passed away. Mm-hmm. But I want to talk to you about how you and Kurt discovered the Smithereens and became fans.
Well, they were on the radio in the late 80s, and they had big hit songs on FM radio. And so I'd buy their records, and it was just old school, like traditional pop music in the vein of like, Beatles and like 60s stuff. And so, we make cassettes back then. I was telling you about the Sabotage cassette that just got flipped over, side 2, side 1, whatever, or side A or side B, whatever.
Yeah.
And
yet especially for you on there, right?
Could you imagine the geeks are listening like, no, that cassette had a side 1 and a side 2, not a side A and a side B.
Yeah.
Like some geek would really know that.
Yeah.
God bless him or her or they or them, whatever. So we had the Smithereens cassette on one side, and then the other side of the cassette was like
Celtic Frost. Yeah.
And so we would just turn the cassette over and over again, and somehow with our brains it just kind of sunk in and it made sense. It's like, yeah, you could do this like heavy music, but you can also have like some bouncy bass lines and like heart melodies, just really melodic stuff, and it made sense.
Absolutely.
And then also not being constrained and saying, well, these are the rules. You should know the rules before you break them. So, but not necessarily. I mean, there's people, they're savant. There's people who are just brilliant. They're like, they didn't know the rules, and they're like, well, that sounds really good. I guess as a listener is what you want to do. But so it just kind of happened. It just made sense. And then we weren't writing for like, well, we want to get on the radio or we want to be, successful or anything. It was just like we just wanted to make music, And so
those things crept in there, Smithereens.
it just crept in, yeah. It's just kind of a
into the
coincidence.
Nirvana DNA, which is so
Through
great.
the technology of the cassette tape.
Yeah.
See how it works? How technology?
Yeah.
The technology itself can be influential.
Yeah.
Because you have to you only get two choices: a side 1 and
Yeah.
a side 2, or a side A or a side B.
Yeah.
And then you just kind of flip it over, or maybe your cassette deck has auto reverse.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
And then you can set it on stop, or play one side,
Yeah.
or stop after, or just keeps going.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's so true. Some of those do that where they play over and over. And I'm sure when you're on long road trips, right?
Yeah.
When you're touring in the beginning, doing the same thing. But that's great. I was wanted to ask you directly about the Smithereens influence there, and I thought it was really cool that you did. So, Krist, thanks for coming and doing this
Matt.
today. The second, third secret is what's out right now, and we'll have you back whenever.
Yes, thank you.
Anytime you're in town, you want to come by and hang out with us, you are welcome. All right.
Thank you very much.
All right, you got a Krist Novoselic, everybody. I'm Matt Pinfield, and this is KLOS New and Approved.